What is up, guys? Coma Blader here, and today I'm going to talk about PSO2 and how it is my official Elsword replacement. Stick around because the video does get a little bit in-depth, but at the same time, you'll just have to watch to understand. So first of all, to understand PSO2, we have to understand what came before it, and everything that goes on before PSO2 came around. So the Dreamcast released in November 27th, 1998, being the first console to have internet connection. It would only be rivaled later in November 15th of 2001 whenever Xbox came around, mainly with Combat Evolved. However, PSO2 launched in December 21st, 2000, making its way for MMOs pretty much from there on. Microsoft would eventually go to reveal at E3 that PSO2 would come to NA at the spring of 2020. Of course, Xbox had early access. Game released in the Microsoft Store on May 27th and August 5th. PSO2 launched in the EU and on Xbox and the Microsoft Store, opening the game globally. PSO is generally the precursor to all MMORPGs to date. It is pretty much what founds it, as a wise Destiny YouTuber once called it the grandfather of all MMORPGs. Now, why am I calling this my Elsword replacement? Well, number one, it's literally free to play. Now, Elsword was free to play, but it's not as similar to Elsword as it may seem. So number one, of course, it's completely 3D, while Elsword was a 2.5. But notably, there's no pay to win in this case. Pay to win usually means that you get some type of an upper benefit to putting money into a game, while with PSO2, all cosmetics do not boost stats, and the only thing you can really pay for is premium, which I will touch on later. First of all, let's talk combat. So the combat is pretty simple in PSO2. It's not really something that is like frame perfect or something. It's very time based, but you'll know whether or not when your systems or something will play into effect. Mainly, it's a red circle. You time that red circle perfectly, and you get a few bonuses and out of it. I really like PSO2 because the skills of which you're able to use is very flexible. You can use skills on whatever way you think. If you want to use a skill for movement, you can use skills for movement. But if you want to go for pure DPS and wide AoE or something, you can go for that. PSO seems to be built around how you want to play rather than how, the game wants you to play. Now, combat has also evolved via its unique features alongside mags and subclasses. Mags will only go forward to boost certain stats as long as you feed certain items to it. So if you feed a melee weapon to it, the mag will actually take on the melee damage and input it into your stats. While subclasses are essentially just a subclass that you can assign to have extra benefits. So, for example, my Joker character, I'll touch on that later, will basically have a bouncer main class, meaning that I'll only have access to a gunblade, I forget the weapon off the top of my head, and then soaring blades, which I mainly use soaring blades, but because I have a hunter subclass, that means I get all the extra bonuses as being one of the hunter subclasses, meaning that I get its iron will, I get its automate systems, I get its HP and all of its perfect physical damage and stuff. But I also love the boosters. So the boosters also turn into play whenever you're, on your way to leveling up. So they have XP, Meseta, and Tri boosters. Of course, they're very simple to know what they mean. Meseta just means that it's the currency in the game, so you're going to get a boost in currency. Of course, an XP booster is pretty simple. And there's also a drop rate booster. Now, the Tri booster means that it's all three in one, and you can have all four of them running at once. Basically, if we're going on a good grinding session, this is essentially what you want to have run all at the same time. Compared to Elsword, that's a big deal because in Elsword there would always be these holiday events where they would activate however long double XP, unlimited stamina, so on and so forth. PSO2 is just you get in and you play. You're not limited. You're not like you're not roadblocked. In Elsword, it always tends to be the case that you run out of stamina. Make sure you have stamina pots, or you're done for the day. That also comes into the XP tickets. The XP tickets are pretty standard. They give you XP when you use them, but a lot of people have said to hold on to these for the successor classes when they've released, because we don't have all classes yet. So please do not use these just yet. Let's talk quests. So quests are very simple within this game's standards. Main quests mainly include expeditions and suppression quests. Expeditions is you go through this pretty much open roam area that you can farm, or not farm, but you can get, materials from harvesting or fishing. And then you go on through 2 areas to eventually go to, defeat the boss. There's also suppression quests, of course, which means that you just have to go hunt for a certain enemy. And then even below that, you have client orders, which are mini side quests. They're good for early XP and ARC's mission progression. So you get like a certain target or creature that you're supposed to kill, and then you go on to kill it, and then you can come back, turn it in for XP and Meseta, depending on what you're doing. Emergency codes are actually mid-quest missions, which consists of really anything. So you might have a collection quest, or you might have a mini boss to kill, or you just might have to kill a certain amount of enemies or something. And you'll know this whenever usually an NPC pops up at the side of your screen, says something, and then it'll say emergency code something. So pretty simple. On top of urgent quests are scheduled based missions. Mainly 12 people can run these quests at once. They really give good rare items and XP. If you go to the website, there's also a whole schedule that tells what's going to be going on at what time. So if you're really getting into PSO2, mainly the schedule is something that you're going to be taking a look at pretty much daily. So let's talk endgame for a moment. So endgame is pretty simple yet difficult at all at the same time. Ultimate quests provide a large amount of new challenges. Mainly enemies, of course. Enemies and ultimate quests pretty much can one-shot you at any terms, unless you're an absolute tank of a hunter or whatever class that you play as. So mainly the things that come from Ultimate Quests are new weapons, areas, and mechanics. Mainly to be with some of the big end-game bosses. So you go in, and it's like a multi-party thing. 12 people can be with you, and you essentially go through these areas, and you look for the boss room. The boss room is usually a single party area. Which becomes pretty easy, but again, it's still difficult. It depends on what you are running and what your teams are running. Now, of course, in every MMORPG, there has to be a fashion endgame. This is probably my favorite thing about PSO2, because number one, you can make your character however you want to. Elsword had quite an endgame, but you gotta remember that the fashion endgame in Elsword also benefited both your endgame dungeon or PvP dwelling. So it's good that PSO2 takes, completely off the side of stats and just makes, cosmetics. Mainly this will be touched on later, because I ended up having a Joker cosplay, which you'll see within the video of my character running around, and then my my quote waifu that I like to call Kona. Which is just, I got bored and decided to run a female character. Don't judge me. Okay, so here's the big one. Let's talk microtransaction. So number one, Sega gives out items due to pretty much anything not working properly. So if the Fresh Find store doesn't work, well, here's a 50% try booster. Oh, is something else not working? Well, here's another try booster. So pretty much you always get benefited from something not working properly. I like this about Sega because it shows that they're willing to put their necks out there to, say sorry. And something like Elsword, they really never did this. From what I know of, they never put their necks out to say sorry about any issues or anything like that came out, especially NA wise. But microtransaction comes into play because there are dozens of series crossover. Now, if you played JP PSO2, of course you're going to know many more, but as for NA, the only ones we've had specifically have been Persona, Vocaloid, Konosuba, and I'm sure there has been a few Sega like crossovers, but mainly there are some more, mainly Attack on Titan, there's Evangelion, and plenty more of which they haven't dropped. Premium sets are also something that comes within the sense of microtransaction, but it's not that big of a deal as you expect. Premium sets only gives minimum bonuses, access to your personal shop, access to trading with other premium players, and a permanent, well, I can't say permanent, but permanent until your set expires. Now, it isn't kind of a set that you wear, it's kind of a set that goes on to your account and it ticks down like a clock, just to kind of make it more simple. But you can't access your personal shop and so on and so forth with tickets that you can manage to pull from fun scratch tickets. And speaking of fun scratch tickets, fun points are gathered in the game by doing multiple friendly things in the game. So you healing somebody, well, there you go. You get fun. You buy something off a player's store and send them kudos. That's also fun in your pocket. Pretty much anything when you do something at like a friendly level within the game, you'll tend to get kudos for it, and then both players get fun out of it. So it's pretty much win-win for every player in the book. Alright, well, here comes the downside of the game. So, of course, on top of the premium sets, you have what is called a mission pass. Now, the mission pass is always given when you purchase a premium, or if you have access to Game Pass Ultimate, because they give out monthly bonuses to players that play PSO2 as long as you own Game Pass. Now, generally, I'm alright with a Battle Pass system. I feel like a Battle Pass system is really good, especially in the ways that, like, Master Chief Collection does it for Halo, as you can buy anything on that certain page of the Battle Pass. But the Mission Pass in PSO2 isn't very encouraging. Cool, you get some cosmetics out of it, and so on and so forth. But the problem is it comes the whole thing of you can sacrifice certain cosmetics to end up getting in-game benefits to the point to where it's like, oh, you ended up buying this and you want to exchange it for boosters? You can do that. Meaning that, yeah, you kind of wasted your money at the same time, meaning that if you don't want those cosmetics and you're only going for the boosters, there's really no reason to go for them, in my personal eyes. And the cosmetics don't seem very interesting compared to how the scratch tickets do it. Of course, the scratch tickets are going to feel like a completely different like level because they're probably supposed to be more, eye-catching to some players. But to me, it really doesn't feel all too good. And of course, as maybe you can't tell within the video, I am playing on Xbox. Now you might be asking, why are you playing keyboard and mouse on Xbox? And well, it feels good, mainly for hunters or something that's like a good physical class. If you're playing like a gunner class, you might want to sit back and use a controller because it feels really good to aim with that controller. But personally, I've had issues of massive frame drops in PSO2. I'm not sure what happens or what causes it. It just suddenly drops and so on and so forth. Now, I have suddenly fixed the problem. The only way I fix the problem is by literally uninstalling the game completely and having to reinstall pretty much 80 gigs worth of updates and the base game itself. Generally, that's not something I want to see in a game. Now, the only thing that could lead me to say that what caused that was the only thing I can think of is beta files. But beta files generally don't have that big of an impact. So I'm wondering whether or not it was more along the lines of my console can't render however the game is being like processed or something of that sort. Now, of course, in PC players, they will generally not have this issue unless it's because the 32-bit video thing that's going on with that. So pretty much those are the only issues that I have besides the whole search function having you to be like extremely pinpoint accurate. But I'll let that pass as it's something that I guess every game needs. Now, finally, I want to cover a topic that is pretty big within the PSO2 frame. So PSO2 has been out for I don't know. I don't know the exact date right off the top of my head. I'll put up a number in front of y'all to kind of display how long PSO2 has been alive. But PSO2 has been alive for a very, very long time, especially on PC and PlayStation because they're where it was exclusive to Japan until Microsoft ended up getting their hands on it, which thank you, Microsoft. I appreciate what you've done so far. It feels really good. And they're only pushing the game further. So in 2021, they're bringing out an update called New Genesis. It's a complete overhaul of the game that we've seen now. It's newly the updates completely updates the game's engine. Now that's big because for a game to go out of its way to update the game's engine, not to mention the developers working their hardest to get this engine to run on an Xbox console on top of the Series X console, is pretty top notch, and it's very ambitious of the team. But I think given that Microsoft is now part of this big PSO2 line, I think that they could easily pull this off. Now, 2021 is next year. But by the time you get the hands on to the Series X console, I would say this console is probably going to be running that game pretty much flawlessly. As the New Genesis update is a big jump from, I would say, a PS2, PS3 game to what looks to be like a next generation, MMORPG, nothing in this game is changing. PSO2 and PSO2 New Genesis are the same game. They've said that the game is going to be able to pretty much be one-to-one on how, they said it was more of an update, meaning that all emotes and all weapons and all cosmetics are able to be pushed over towards this new update. So it's good to see that even after years of this game not getting any updates, we finally see a really good visual update come into PSO2. I would say that about wraps up my little rant about PSO2 and how much I physically cannot get my mind off this game. It feels like every week I get pulled back into this game for either cosmetics, but then just to eventually get tied down into really what I would call just playing the game. Like, the game's combat is extremely fun. Anybody who has not touched or landed into this game, I would highly recommend anyone and everyone to put their foot into this game. Again, you don't need a PC to play this. As long as you have an Xbox One console, a controller, or a mouse and keyboard, well, technically you still need the controller, play this game. A lot of people might not be into the whole thing of anime, and listen, I get the whole anime concept, but this game is on another level. There is no other game that you're going to be able to touch when it comes down to, free-to-play aspects other than this game here, because this game takes free-to-play to a whole nother concept. Warframe is another good concept, but it's a concept of which that it becomes a very boring grind, and it never seems to stop. But within PSO2 standards, you have your own free time. You have enough time to sit back, relax, and block 1 through 5 and 69, and literally sit there with looking as Gucci as you possibly can without, because it feels good. The game overall feels like it's a fun time to play. Now, again, with Elsword, I'll be honest, with the whole 2020 thing, of course, there are going to be a few people that are going to be staying here, and of which I thank you for staying here. Elsword tends to have that taste of which that you play through the game, but you start losing interest as soon as you get to the end game. PSO doesn't feel like that. PSO feels like you're going towards the end game more and more you play in the game, the more you learn. Now, if you do pick up PSO2, level up first and don't worry about guides, because guides are more of an end game thing. To be honest, when it comes down to guides, mainly the things that you're going to be looking up for are weapon augments and different things like that. Do not touch weapon augments or anything of that sorts until you get your hands on to really what the end game is, and you're pretty much decked out in cash. When it comes down to mags, also search up a guide, because mags are something that are generally tedious to do, and there are ways to, improve how you push forward, like how mags work and so on and so forth. So definitely look up a guide for anything you're not sure about. So yeah, I think that is pretty much everything for my Elsword replacement, as I think this game should be a replacement for everyone, as long as, your console or your PC can handle it. I have quite a few friends that are playing the game. It is also worth noting that if you're wanting to play the game with friends, make sure that you're on the same ship as each other, because there's 4 ships, and once you're on a ship, you can't switch unless you play real cash. So I would generally stick to ship 3, ship 4. But if you want to get groovy with it, ship 1 and ship 2 are generally where like the content creators reside. I'm personally in ship 3, so feel free to come around and have some fun there. So yeah, I think that would be it. So I appreciate you guys watching to the end of this video, and I guess I'll catch you guys later. Adios.